Bitch is a Bad Word podcast is for informational purposes only and reflects the opinions of the host and guests. It contains explicit content and discusses sensitive topics such as domestic abuse, sexual assault, and violence, which may be distressing to some listeners. Please take care of your emotional well-being while listening. While we strive for accuracy, we make no warranties about the completeness or reliability of the information, and any reliance on it is at your own risk. We do not endorse third-party views and are not liable for any defamatory claims. Listeners should conduct their own research and consult professionals before making decisions. If you or someone you know is in danger, please call 911 or contact the National Domestic Abuse Hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 800-799-7233 or text START, S-T-A-R-T, to 88788. We've got your back, besties. Caliber Studios has not independently verified the information you're about to hear. Reality isn't always what it seems. It's what you make of it. Sons of Anarchy actress Ali Walker debuts her electrifying new thriller, The Light Runner, on June 6th at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But our bestie gang can pre-order it now at aliwalkerofficial.com. She's a baddie. She's your new bestie, and we've got her back. Go visit her website, aliwalkerofficial.com, and pre-order The Light Runner now. Welcome back to Bitch is a Bad Word. I am Lindsay. I'm one mom with 4 kids and 0 fancy letters behind my name. We bring on all the experts to unpack all the experiences we're going through as survivors of domestic abuse. We are helping you build a bestie toolkit so that you can travel this road to freedom being the most prepared you could ever be. Today, we have the absolute honor of speaking with 2 fellow Canadians, Alex and Amanda, the amazing voices behind the Dirty Laundry podcast. They are mediators, they are awesome podcasters, and they are your new besties. So let's get into it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
happy
us.
to be here.
So excited. We had a lovely pre-recording chat. We got to know that we're all Canadian.
Yeah.
And so we're going to focus this episode on what happens down to your neighbor downstairs. But definitely we can explore how mediation and things like that work in Canada as well for our fellow listeners.
Awesome.
Great.
So here in the US, our family court system is set up in such a way that, you know, the judges really want you to be able to come to court having pretty much figured it out. They don't really want to get involved in the parenting plans and the who's picking up and this and that and the other. And so most people in the States aren't in a situation where you can really afford an attorney. So you are usually riding into the Wild West of family court, working out some kind of agreement with your ex, who in our situations of our listeners are most likely abusers or high conflict or whatnot. So in your experience, what is the best course of action someone needs to take? They've left their abuser, they're in a safe situation, and now it's time to figure out the parenting plan.
Yeah, I think it's a similar situation to down south, where it's incredibly expensive to get an attorney and have them sort of take you through the whole process. Yeah. But if you are in a high conflict situation, there is a chance that you will need that sort of lawyer involvement at some point. But I think my suggestion would be to start with, speak to a lawyer and get an idea of what your rights are going into this whole process, but then find a mediator who can sit down with you both and work out a parenting plan that works for you, because you will save so much money having a mediator do the parenting plan rather than your lawyers. And they're working for you both. So they're not just there to be adversarial. They're trying to actually get you to a resolution.
Yeah, I think because of the cost, there is such a reliance on self-representation if you choose a litigation path. I think what people need to understand is you can kind of Frankenstein your divorce, right? You can use a mediator for part of it. You can then use a lawyer for part of it. You can then switch to arbitration if you need to move things quicker, or, which is essentially a judge for hire. I mean, there are all of these different types of professionals that if you have the wherewithal, or hire maybe even a divorce coach to even understand what kinds of questions, what information you need to be gathering, what kind of team you need, before you just go for this shark of an attorney, kind of take a step back and look and explore your different options. And it might be a team of experts that all have different strengths and different, sort of places and times through the divorce process that you can utilize their expertise. Because yes, Amanda and I are both mediators. We're very biased to that process. It does work so well for so many. But there are still times when I will look at my clients and go, okay, we're done this section now.
Yeah.
Now it's time to go to your lawyers and let them do their job. Or now is the time to hire your divorce financial analyst and let them do their job. Because you want the best person for the job. And family law, I mean, it touches on so many different aspects, so many different laws, real estate, tax, parenting. I mean, it's such a complex, endeavor. And to just have it all under this umbrella of I have my divorce attorney. Okay, maybe that works for some, but if it doesn't work for you, that doesn't mean it's wrong, or that doesn't mean, you're screwed, or this is not a good process. It's just pull back a bit and educate yourself a little bit on what even you need,
the different methods are,
and where to start.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's really good information, because I think that if you're in an abusive relationship in particular, when you decide to leave, there's a lot of people who just have to just go immediately, and there's really no planning. What we're trying to do on the show is educate people that if you're listening, you're probably in a position where you probably are getting ready to leave. So we all think of just a standard divorce attorney. Okay, well, I'm getting a divorce, so I need an attorney, but it's kind of antiquated, right? There's more options now. And a divorce attorney doesn't necessarily equal a person who understands high conflict, who understands the nuances of being in an abusive relationship. So do you have resources, or do you guys in particular focus on getting to the meat of the situation, saying, okay, these people it's abusive, it's high conflict, we may not be able to work with them together, or how do you unpack all that for someone?
That's a huge part of our training and our screening, is weeding out where the abuse and the power imbalance lies. So if you have someone who is a skilled mediator, a skilled professional, then they will have the training to see what's really going on, right? Because I think for a lot of people who leave abusive relationships, they're afraid that their abuser will pull the wool over the eyes of the professionals that they work with, right? Mm-hmm. They'll charm them, they'll make them think it's all the other person's fault. But we're really skilled to see through that bullshit and see when there's control happening, and it's usually not just one area of abuse. I always say it's not just in isolation. So often there's a history of financial abuse. There's emotional abuse, there's verbal, sometimes there's sexual, there's physical, there's all different types of abuse that come with this type of personality. And so we're trained to look out for it. And sometimes mediation has to be done differently when there are serious safety concerns, like maybe the two parties never speak and it's just us going back and forth. So it really can work in those situations, but you have to be careful.
Yeah, it's true, because I love that you're trained, and so someone can hear that, because that is the biggest fear, is that we were just talking about this before the show. Everyone's getting hoodwinked by these people, and very smart, educated, worldly women are getting the wool pulled over their eyes. So of course it's a natural feeling to say, okay, they're going to do it to them. I mean, I've witnessed it personally, where they're I've sat in court with my ex, and I was like, well, maybe he's not so bad. I mean, have I had it wrong this whole time? He just presents so well that I'm like, wait, you don't know, and you're panicking, and you're like, they're going to do this, and someone else is going to believe it, and they're going to fall for the con. So you guys are trained.
Especially in court, because you're not getting to know the family or the history. Right. A judge is going to see you for an hour, read your file, whatever the case may be, and isn't going to see the progression of all of the communication that's happened between the two of you, all of those little digs, all of those texts. that, another professional might be able to see.
Also, if I may, this type of personality typically lends itself to wanting all the pomp and circumstance that comes with court and this audience. And, they get to present so well and they get to win everyone over. And that almost fuels the fight. And so with mediation, we kind of take that down, because you can try to impress me all you want. Go nuts. It's just me, right? Like if I've decided that for a particular client, if there's abuse, shuttle mediation. Okay, so as Amanda said, you're in 2 different rooms. I'm going back and forth. There's no one to perform to. And in fact, they're so busy trying to impress me that we can actually get further down a negotiation, because there is this willingness. You can't be right. I'm not here to, make a judgment on whatever and tell you your ex is nuts. Like, I'm not giving you that. So instead, let's just talk about what an agreement looks like. And so we can really focus in, and I think kind of deflates some of that ego and that need for like showmanship.
That is so true, because that's what they're doing. They want that like dog and pony show. And you're like, I see through this bullshit. And you're just helping move everything down the line. So you would say, like, first course of action, mediation over lawyer every time in a high conflict.
If for nothing else, then the price tag is so much lower, and we can be an amazing resource for education.
And you can always add on. You can always, like, we work with lawyers all the time. So a lot of our clients are represented, some are not. Yeah. And so you can always add on, or maybe even at our suggestion, where it might get to a point where I say, you know what, it's time to bring in some counsel, because it's, this person is not being forthcoming, or it's getting too heated, or whatever it is. Yeah. But you can always add on. So it can't really hurt to try the mediation first, assuming that, you're in a safe place and all of that is taken care of.
And to be fair though, mediation takes 2 to tango, right? It's a voluntary process. So people have to be willing to come. And for me, like, I'm really strict about, you need to become willing to negotiate in good faith, because this is not a dog and pony show. This is where we're like making decisions and getting shit done. And so if you're using this as a way to collect information, find out what the other person's bottom line is, all of that stuff. Again, we're trained to look out for this, right? So I am very on the lookout all of the time for these kind of sort of nefarious strategies. And so again, being able to nip that and go, you know what, this is actually not appropriate. We're never going to get a resolution. And that's our goal. Like, we're working towards an agreement. And so if that's not going to happen, I'm not going to keep taking your time. I'm not going to keep taking your money. This is a waste. But the willingness, at least for both parties, in order for mediation to happen, needs to be there. So there is that caveat as well. And then that's maybe where you're going, honestly, the divorce coach route. And I know that sort of everyone's a life coach. Everyone's a coach of some, capacity these days, but they can also just be your kind of cheerleader, your support system. Instead of sending an hour with your lawyer at $1,000, $1,500 an hour, go spend an hour with a coach and vent to them, or get a little bit of information, or, use them as a Rolodex for other people that you could potentially need to hire for your situation. So start gathering information. Yes, safety, number one concern. But a lot of folks, for example, and again, I don't know if the law is in the States, but they think that if they leave their house, they lose all entitlements to that asset. Like, that is not the case. You're not going to lose your kids. You're not going to lose your house just because you left and found safety. Right. But so many stay because they don't know that. So just the empowerment that comes with information. And if you can't afford a high ticket lawyer, it doesn't mean you're just out of luck. It means, what else can you use? What other professionals can you hire to get that information so that you can make the best informed decisions for yourself, for your children, for your safety, for your future?
Yeah, and it may be a better solution than a lawyer, because a lawyer, and especially if you are coming out of trauma, you are going to be spending a lot of fucking money with a very expensive therapist at that point, who's like billing you per hour. I did it. I'd get the bill and like, what the fuck? And then I'm like, oh, I was like venting in these emails to the lawyer, and they charged me like, a fourth.
I do the same thing. I use my lawyer as my therapist. I'm like, this is costing too much money. I'm like, don't you think this was wrong? And don't you think this shouldn't have happened? I'm like, this is not.
They're like, what do you want us to do? Keep talking.
Yeah.
You're like, this is really expensive. So a mediation, though, you can arrive at, everything that you need to get done, parenting plans, child support. Does that get sorted out in mediation?
Support. Yep.
Child support, spousal support,
Or
division of
alimony, yep.
assets, literally all of the things.
Okay. So you can arrive at a resolution. I mean, Godspeed to those who know. If you know, you know.
You know. You can get there.
You can get there. And is it a legally binding agreement?
So it becomes legally binding when someone signs it, right? When, just like if the two people were sitting at the kitchen table and writing an agreement and then signing it. So what we always suggest when we're done with our agreement is go get legal advice, independent legal advice, before you sign anything. But that being said, some people don't. They just decide that they're going to sign it themselves and submit it for their divorce, and off they go. So that's really, a personal choice.
Yeah. But we can do the whole thing. And both Amanda and I do in our practices. And again, up in Canada, you would then file that with a judge as an uncontested divorce because you've done all the contesting in mediation. You've arrived, you've agreed to this, you've both signed to this, and you submit it. And then it goes through the courts just, how it would if it was done by lawyers.
And then if there's any fucking around with it, you can take that back and say, here, judge, look, I told you they did exactly what I said they were going to do.
Exactly.
Especially if you are dealing with a higher conflict personality on the other side, always recommend is getting it, into a court order, right? Yes. Because you can only enforce something that is, submitted with the court. So you then, submit it with the courts. It becomes a court order, and then you can enforce it. So you can go back to judge and say, hey, so-and-so didn't do what they're supposed to do.
They didn't pay child support.
They breached this agreement. They breached that. Deal with them. And good luck to you.
Good luck to you.
Make me do it. Yes. I mean, easier said than done.
I know. I wish it was that easy, because then if there was I was talking to a lawyer who said, I said, wow, this whole thing that I've just done was like perjury after perjury after perjury. Like why are we even using the term perjury anymore? Because you're just they just lie and nothing happens. And he's like, if we actually if people went to jail for perjury, we'd have more courthouses, like jails, than we have 7-Elevens. And I was like, oh, okay.
But it's true, because you tell victims to, get your court orders, and they're going to have your day in court, or you're going to get your answers. But then people just can lie, or they can just do whatever the fuck they want. And there's not much consequences, aside from maybe if you're not paying child support. But there's not a lot of consequences for this behavior.
And the tricky thing too is I had a client, and they agreed to something, and then one of them was like, okay, but who's going to enforce this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? Fair question. Yeah. It's not going to be me. I've moved on. I got an agreement. Yeah. I've done my job.
Yeah. No, it's
are you now going to start policing one another? Now you're getting into instances where people are recording each other. People are screenshotting everything. It gets so ugly so quickly. So again, not to get on our soapbox about mediation, but the whole point of it is you come to agreement together. There's more likelihood of that agreement actually withstanding, because you feel like you were heard. You feel like, maybe we both didn't like this agreement, but we both had to compromise. It wasn't a judge saying you win, you lose. So they both kind of lose and they both kind of win. But as a result, they both kind of stick to it, because it's kind of the best of what are alternatives.
Something they can live with.
Something they can live with.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not their dream agreement, but it's not horrible. And therefore, off we go. So, but the enforcement piece, you're still now getting involved in a court system. Mm-hmm. You could be waiting months, right? If it's not an emergency, you could be waiting years.
So you can shore this part of it up in a mediation, you guys, and there's maybe less likelihood, less likelihood of the perpetrator, high conflict person, weaponizing a mediator to hurt you and to continue that post-separation abuse, if you guys are trained to shut that shit down. And then that sounds like a very great place to say, okay, at least you start here and you feel, I think if you go straight to family court and you just it's so demoralizing and you just feel like that win or that lose, that's an important piece that you just said, because that can really affect your mental health if you lost on a lie, or you lost on that's a hard thing to work through. So if you can avoid that and start off here and at least get to a point of resolution, then you're maybe have some time to heal a little bit and like get yourself some distance between you and the situation. And then you have you have your paper, at least getting to that.
Going to court right away, you're running onto the battlefield and you're not ready. Right? You might never be ready. It may not be appropriate for you, but like you're just forcing yourself into battle where there's two sides and they're out for blood, and it's ugly from the out of the gate. Whereas if you are working with like a mediator who is supposed to be neutral and sort of stop things and focus on, we need to make some resolutions here. We're not focusing on that bullshit that you're going to focus on in court. You're off to a better start.
Yes.
How could you not be?
Could there be a more intimidating place than a courtroom?
Oh God. No.
Right?
I swear.
So you're emotionally fragile. You're discussing your financial future. You're discussing your children's future and how much time you have to give up spending with them in this like very archaic model of legal jargon, intimidation. The judge is literally on a bench, high up, and you're down below. Like it's so intimidating. And so you look at these two personalities, one that is very verbose and charismatic and manipulative. They're going to shine. And then you look at somebody who is broken, concerned about their future, their well-being of their children. They just want, whatever it is that they want, this small little nugget of peace. They're not going to thrive in that environment. As you said, Liz, be even more emotionally beaten. And so who wins?
Well, and the protective parent usually looks hyper.
Exactly.
Yes.
And, you look a little, she's a little unhinged. Look at her.
She's anxious. She's got this.
Doesn't know the right terminology. It's because she's crying herself to sleep every night over her children. Like, they don't shine there.
No. And the terminology piece is real because the judge, and I mean, if you go into court pro se defendant, or litigant, the judge has an expectation that you are not ignorant of the law. And so they will expect you. I mean, they don't need you to speak exactly like a lawyer, but they need to understand the lawyer jargon that they're spewing back at you. And you have to understand in real time what they're even saying. And it doesn't make any sense. And if you try to come back later, I didn't really quite understand that. That's not an excuse. So it's like, that is the hardest place to be.
Hardest.
Okay. So when we come back, I want to ask you guys your feelings about the word or the phrase or the term high conflict co-parenting. We'll be right back.
I met him at my daughter's college graduation. I pictured being in a fight with him. He was my daughter's boyfriend. 20 days later, he took her life when she tried to break up with him. When Dating Hurts is the name of my podcast. I knew I could not bring Kristen back, but believed I could help others who became tangled up in dating abuse and domestic violence. My guests are domestic violence survivors. Who knows more about the toxicity, the entrapment, devious manipulation, the loneliness, the pain and suffering than brave survivors who live to tell about it? Their stories are raw, intimate, plain-spoken, deeply personal. For many, this is the first time they've told their stories in one place. Today's survivors want current victims to know there are ways to achieve freedom. There is a process that's safe, that this can happen to anyone, and that you are not alone. Join me and my courageous guests on the When Dating Hurts podcast. It's a series of lives being saved.
Welcome back, besties. We have the ladies from Dirty Laundry podcast on with us, Amanda and Alex, and they are breaking it all down for us. And we are talking about the term high conflict co-parenting. Does that exist? Is that a fantasy? What are your thoughts? I'm going to ask both of you what your feelings are.
Go ahead.
It's definitely had its time in the spotlight. That term. High conflict co-parenting. I definitely think it's there. It's something. It's definitely real.
I think it's bullshit. I don't think you can.
But I could see how people sort of fall into two categories. I can see that even with my own clients. You have the type that are sort of, call it what you will, but you do have the files that are very more amicable. They
Sure.
respect each other to a certain extent. You know, they're there to really just get their family to the next point and realize that it didn't work out between the two of them, but they don't want to they're not at each other's throats.
Yeah.
And then you have the other side,
Yeah.
which I guess everyone gets labeled as the high conflict.
Right.
And is that the majority?
Yeah.
These days, I don't know.
And high conflict, I think, is also such a huge umbrella term. What exactly does that mean? Because, you know, parents could hate one another, but they can compartmentalize and focus on the children and do drop off and pick up totally cordially, and they can respect each other. And, you know, if your agreement says, you know, 48 hours notice to change a time of whatever, and they can text and do that and it's all copacetic, well then great. You can be high conflict and you can still co-parent. But if one parent is out for vengeance or is going to make that other parent pay and will weaponize the children, no, you're not co-parenting. You are, I'm hoping someone has advised you to do parallel parenting, whereby it's very much, you know, a huge wall between you. You're doing your thing at your house, I'm doing my thing at my house, and nary the two shall meet. It's tricky. Mm-hmm. It's tricky when a word becomes so part of the zeitgeist that you've lost the actual meaning of it.
And it only takes one person to create the conflict, by the way.
Yes.
Very good point. Exactly.
Yes. It doesn't always take two to tango in these situations.
But you know what, Lindsay, it reminds me too a lot of oh, it's an abusive relationship. Well, no, it's not. One person is abusing and one person is being abused. And that's not a relationship. That's just, oh, oops, you didn't know you got married or you had a child together and now you're fucked. Well, that's very different than hi, I'm in a relationship with this person. We're working towards mutual goals, or we have common respect for one another. Therefore, we can do, you know, X in this sort of social contract we've decided upon. If one person is abusing the other, or one person is creating so much conflict that the other person cannot co-parent, well, then it's not really a high conflict relationship or you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm not articulating myself, but as you say, it just
there's
takes
one person who's at fault in that situation, is what you're saying.
Try and be so PC.
Yes, it takes two, and you both have but sometimes you don't. Sometimes it is just one person who has that controlling, vindictive personality who just wants to make the other person's life miserable.
Yeah.
And it's as clear as day.
And you can take personal accountability for entering that relationship, not seeing those red flags and the early signs and going along with it and getting yourself in that position. Fine. Maybe you were hoodwinked. Okay. There's a part of you that can say, you know what? Damn. That's my bad.
But you don't have to pay for it for the rest of your life.
But you don't need to pay for it and be punished for the rest of your life or the rest of your children's life. And I think that's where we need to get a little bit more cognizant of the language that we choose, because it's really powerful. And most of it is, I don't know, kind of excusing shitty behavior. I think
it also dismisses the severity of what's going on. Yes. Because if you just say, oh, you know, they're high conflict, those two, you know, so then any professional who gets involved with them, oh yeah, another high conflict family, it sort of attributes the blame on both. Mm-hmm. And like we just said, it might not be the situation. You might very well have a victim and an abuser. And so they've been labeled as this high conflict couple, let's just say, but it's really one person.
And the abuse is very important to decipher, because we are learning, as more people are coming out and talking about this, that abuse doesn't have to be physical. And I was shouting a lot during my breakup about financial abuse, and I was mocked. And he, you know, that is not real. You know, financial abuse isn't real. You had a house, you have a car. Just stop. And then I'm like, but wait, I didn't have autonomy. I didn't have control over things. I didn't have this. So I'm learning that was your power and control over the situation, which makes it abusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think people are hearing that enough to say, if someone, and if you can't even access the money to pay for your services or pay for a lawyer, you are being abused, bitches. I promise you, that is what's happening. And I really want that to be in someone's ear going, wait a minute. Cause that's real. And that situation isn't going to get any better. Let's be honest. They don't want to give you anything.
Yeah.
And what's theirs is theirs, and what's yours is theirs. And what was yours and ours is theirs.
Yes. And where this gets really tricky is when we talk about child support, because it's all this whole rhetoric of like, I don't want to give her any more money. It's like, no, you're not giving her money. You're giving your children money. You're giving them food and shelter and clothing. And so even the way that the system is set up, whereby one parent has to pay the other parent, it is so ripe for conflict. But we, again, in this field and doing this work, have to destigmatize that crap where it's like, no, I'm calling you out on it. Just because it's going into their bank account because they are the only person over 18 taking care of your children doesn't mean they're off, getting Botox and going on a vacation. Like, get your shit together. So,
but even if they are, you can't control what people do.
Fine.
This is a big one too, though, is because you could have a very wealthy family where one person has a lot of money and has to pay a lot of child support because of it, right? And so they don't get to control what the other person does with it.
But that's really hard for a controlling person.
It's very hard for a controlling person. That's something that sometimes it's a reality check that we have to have with our clients, which is this is the law. Yes. I'm sorry you don't like it. But that's the law. It's there for a reason.
And I would highly recommend you keep, like, what you're able to do is remind somebody that when they get this legally binding contract, because what this high conflict person loves to do is to continually con you. So you're like in this moment, they're like the abuse starts at the romanticizing again. And they can do this while you're not together, post separation. And then you're like, well, okay, they're better now. They're really nice to me. They really want to work this out. They really want this co-parenting thing to do great. And like, let's be like Heidi and Jim, where they go to dinner on Thursdays after the hockey game. That's not fucking happening. Okay. No. So don't do it. And they're also going to say, we don't need the judge. We don't need the mediator. That's going to cost too much. We're just paying somebody else. Let's keep this in the family. No, because they're going to do all the things to make sure you don't get that money. So you need the judgment. You need the order. The order is what helps you use the law. But otherwise, there's like so many times I've heard from people, myself included, where I'd be like, okay, I'm tired. Let's remove this out of the court system because I think we're going to get along better this way. And I would have like the child support check would have like deposit only on the back. Or the next text would be like, I hope you didn't deposit that check, bitch. And you're like, okay, like that's real. And so any opportunity a person can have to control you, because that's what they're used to and that's what they need, they will. So is there any situation where you just say, look, what's a lump sum? Or do you guys push people into directions where you're like, we don't have to expect a check from them every month?
Yeah,
child support you can't. In Canada, it's like very heavily legislated. You have to pay every month. But definitely when we are looking at spousal support, lump sum, like not deferred payments, like we need to cut ties is as many ways as possible with this person, because that post-separation abuse is often worse than it was in the relationship, which is why so many don't want to leave, right? Or the way that they then treat the children is so much worse. At least when you were there 100% of the time, you could protect them or this. So yes, the less entangled you are, the better. That is always my recommendation.
But it's also hard because for a lump sum, for example, the other person has to agree to it, right? Sure. So you're talking with someone who maybe has the funds available, whether it be from a house or from accounts or what have you, but they have to agree to it for the most part. And sometimes they don't want to let go of that control. They want to be able to say, no, every year I'm going to reevaluate how much alimony I'm giving you, right? And then pull back and keep back a couple $100 this month and a couple $100 next month, just because I can. So they have to agree to it too, which is a tough one.
It is tough. It just keeps reopening the wound. It just keeps giving them access, which is typically what they're looking for. So you mentioned, on the back of the check, I've seen people in their email money transfers write horrible messages to their ex. And you're just like, well, but why?
We've also seen like the number in the box doesn't match the number written. So then you have to go back and you're not stupid. You know but it's just you go and you're like, oh my God, this sounds so petty, but these are these tiny little
Just little things to remind you that they're in, or to make you think they're in control.
Yeah.
I can change the decimal. I can change the number just to make you sick today. Make you do that extra step just because.
Yeah, you're going to just like totally destroy someone's day. And then we talked too, like, I really want to encourage people when you're, and it is hard because you're coming out of a very traumatic situation. You're still in trauma. You still don't know what the fuck is going on, up from down, left from right. And then the reality is you most likely loved this person and you've lost your marriage or your relationship. You've lost time with your kids. You've gained it's better on the other side of, we promise you this. But while you're in it, you're just like, oh my God, like, and all the real, like, normal things of getting a divorce are there, and the guilt and the shame and all the shit you feel. Then you're having to go in this and think the future. So I really want to like have you say to people, I know it's really hard, but you need to be thinking about what the next 18 years look like, because you don't want to keep coming back. Like, this should be like the Bible, one and done. And this is like what we refer to.
Yeah.
And that's why we try and think of everything. Like, our agreements are so detailed. And I will say that the more, I use high conflict in quotes, but the more high conflict a family is, the more detailed their agreement has to be. So, you know, one of our guests recently said, if it doesn't have a time start and a time end on it, don't sign it, right? So you need to have just the details of pickup times and drop off times, and what happens if there's a new partner, and, you know, when are your kids getting cell phones, and what extracurriculars are they doing, and all the things that you're going to come across, so that when they get there, it's already written out for them. So that's why, you know, if you're doing it on your own, it's hard to think about those things ahead of time. Right? But if you work with a professional who says, no, this is going to come up, let's put it down, so that you can have that sort of Bible to turn to, because you're going to need it.
Yeah, you need the playbook. You need a very detailed playbook. The more conflict in the relationship, in the divorce, the longer your agreement should be, basically.
Yeah. I mean, because it's like that. If they can find the loophole in it, they will.
Those little loopholes. Even the difference between the word of may versus will can change an entire thing, and you're nodding your head because you know, right? It's a huge difference. May versus will.
Yeah, I like the term. So a lot of else that comes up in a lot of things. Like, I'll do this will happen else, blah 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 will happen. I'm like, I don't understand what that language is. And then another thing that will happen, like, you agree to do this, and I'll decide, or otherwise. Like, well, you know, you're going to choose the otherwise. So why don't we just start there? Because start
in the otherwise. If you give them the alternative, they will take it, right?
So, all right, where do we start? How are you going to fuck me today? That is the question.
There is no detail that they can't argue about.
No, and they have a lot of time. We were talking about this again. These are people, like, let's be real. Not necessarily just high conflict, maybe sociopathic, borderline personality. They have the ability, the energy, and the will to just dive into every little detail and twist it and turn it and confuse you, gaslight you, all the things, so that you are left going, like, their goal is to get you to give up. They want you to give up the kids, or they want you to give up the money. They want you to give something up. And
or give everything up.
Give it all up.
Give it all up.
Give it all up. Admit that you were wrong. You did everything to ruin the relationship, and therefore you are willing to walk away from everything just to get peace of mind.
Oh my God.
It's really harsh. And so, I mean, peace of mind is something I'm constantly asking clients in this situation. What is your peace worth? Like, here's what you are legally entitled to. Here's where I see this going. What's your peace worth?
Have you ever had a woman say, just like, fuck it, I just want my kids and that's it?
Oh, all the time.
But it doesn't work that way.
But
I
it
find
doesn't work. And our job as professionals is to go, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
Because they're always going to, if you give up the money, I've heard this so many times. Okay, I'm just going to give up the money. I just want my kids. I just leave me alone. They'll take the money, and then guess what they're coming back for?
Yep.
The kids.
Yep.
So it's never done. You're never walking away like that.
So you might as well take everything that you're entitled to now, because it's not going to matter.
it's not going to matter.
And
So
it's really hard because this is the time that you're the most emotionally fragile. And so you want it to be over. You're rushing through things to get to the end, which I get it. It's like being at a gym class. Like, you got 10 more reps. I'm going to rip them out so fast so that it's over. But the problem is it's not over. And so now all you've done is you've rushed through something. You've made really bad choices. You've agreed to really shitty outcomes. And it's not over still. And the grief is still there. All the emotional turmoil, it's still there. But now all you have is a really bad agreement and all the emotional turmoil.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of our job is like, let's slow down a minute.
Yeah.
Let's pause here and let's circle back
before
next
you
week.
just give up this alimony or you give up that property. Like, let's just take a minute.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then that's important because divorce lawyers on the other side are like, let's wrap it up. They are in like their goal is to get you to, I think, a resolution, at least in my experience, that was so shitty in the end. Cause they were just like, I mean, at one point the lawyer goes, can we just like leave the DV out of the discussion with the judge, you know? And you're like, well, but that's part of the relationship. Well, okay. I mean, they'll just think you're kind of throwing it in there just to win something. And you're like, but I'm not. Anyway, and then you end up being like kind of coerced or like I don't know that the lawyer, that especially not somebody who's high conflict, is in a position to help you navigate this. And like,
it's so tricky. Yeah. Cause it's not, I don't know. I feel like I was going to cut you off. You want to say something? I always say the lawyers have the most conflict of interest because they are billing by the hour. Right. And so the longer the conflict goes on, the more money they're making. And often they're not here to shit on lawyers. They're actually incredibly crucial to this whole process, but they're often instigating as well. Like, you could fight for more. Oh, I bet you could win that house. Or I bet you. It's like, I appreciate you're my advocate, but like, hang on just a minute. So then I say, well, what's your piece worth? Mm-hmm. How much of this fight do you want to take on? And listen, this is not for everyone, right? That's why you have to be, pretty choosy when hiring professionals. They have to align with your morals, your values, the way you see things. It's really important, if this person is representing you, that they understand what you actually want in the end. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes some can take on too much, or they really sort of interject themselves into your fight. And then it's like, that's muddy the waters a bit. So if that's the case and you want someone advocating for you, just make sure that they know what it is you're advocating for, what it is you want when it's all said and done, so that you don't get just caught up in the turmoil of conflict.
Mm-hmm. I also think people think who are victims that the DV, the domestic violence, will, when they share it with the judge will finally validate them and they'll finally get the answers that they want. But it's almost like it's a nuisance. Mm-hmm. Right? It's almost like, no, you're clouding the issues here. We don't care about what happened back then. No. Like, we need to focus on the future.
Yeah.
But what about the assault? What about the this? What about that? What about all of these things that have happened? And it's almost like they don't want to hear about it.
No. And if you didn't report it, they're like, well, where's the report? Well, we know most people don't report it. So you're sitting there going, but this is the reason I left.
Right.
And now I'm having to fight for everything that was mine or ours. But you need to understand the reason I left was this reason. And I think that that's really hard for victims when they don't get heard or they're not seen. Then they're just like, it's like re-traumatizing them. And
I don't think the courts are set up to serve victims in that way. They're not.
And I don't think lawyers are. I don't think lawyers are trained enough in, sort of trauma, in abuse. Like, we go through extensive training. And again, not here, maybe they are, maybe I'm just wrong, but they want to leave it
3 hours in the States, or like, it's like not a lot of time.
The training.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think, listen, we are in a no fault divorce system. So it doesn't matter if you had an affair or you gambled away the house or whatever, you just fell out of love. Like, the why doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. But abuse is of its own category where it actually does matter, because now you're showing a history of manipulation, of gaslighting, of financial abuse. This is going to continue throughout the separation and in as well after the divorce is done. Mm-hmm. So it needs to be a part of it, but it does muddy the waters.
It does muddy the waters. So the best thing that like our besties can do is to put a team together. So you've got like, the judge is not the person that you should be looking towards for validation of your past and your that's not it. So you get the right person in place, that is the coach or the therapist, the trauma-informed person, and you get that with a mediator, and then you've got, your drinking buddies.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes.
But it's so true.
You
The
get a
judge
team.
is there to, read the law and interpret the
Yes.
law. And that's where they stay in their lane in that
That's their
way. And
expertise.
and so you really have to get a multitude of people on your side to give you what you need in this process.
Yeah. Because it is so multifaceted.
It is. But there's no easy answer and there's no easy path, especially for people who are victims of, of domestic violence. There's no one way to do it. And there's no simple road.
There's no simple way.
There's no simple way.
No simple way.
It sucks and it's hard and you've got kids to raise at the same time.
And we're often asked because, like, again, I alluded to this earlier, but the fact that this is like a voluntary process, both people need to be willing to participate. If you have somebody who's not, I'm always asked, but can you actually negotiate with a narcissist, with a sociopath, with, insert new adjective there?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the answer is no.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's straight up no, this is not the process for you. You need to go find a lawyer. You need to go,
have a judge tell you what to do because you won't listen to anybody else,
Exactly.
right? So there's an issue with authority.
Yeah.
So even someone who is in a mediation position, and of course we're not necessarily the authority figures, but we are there sort of to help, guide the process and what have you, but they don't respect authority.
Well,
right?
And mediation isn't neutral. If they're
right.
So when you're dealing with somebody, like you think mediation, and I immediately think maybe it's ADD, but like meditation. And so then I'm like, oh, it's calm and amazing. Like, but
we try to keep it calm. We try, but like we're supposed to, we do try, keep neutrality and what have you. But sometimes there is a right and a wrong, and we have to call it out.
Yeah.
Right.
But when you might have a personality that just cannot accept that, and so they need a judge to literally just tell them what to do.
Have you ever thrown someone out of mediation?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I have fired clients for sure.
Yeah.
Listen, it's such a waste of everyone's time and money. If it's not working, it's not working. I'm the first to let them know that. Like, I am the most optimistic when it comes to my job. I think that everyone can rebuild a foundation of communication and conflict de-escalation. Like, I'm so pro all of these things. I am optimism to a T. And I have fired clients because it's just not going to happen.
You're like,
I also won't allow this. Like I run a tight ship. I'm not going to allow, I always say that my background is in teaching. I'm not going to allow one person to sit there and abuse the other. It's not going to happen under my watch. So if that continues, we're done here.
oh my gosh, I love it.
You need someone who's going to be tough like that, and not all mediators are, not all lawyers are, not all professionals are, but you really need to find someone who will call people on their bullshit and, call them out.
Yeah. And that's why I say, don't be afraid to interview your mediators, your lawyers, your therapists, all these professionals. Make sure that they see the same conclusion that you see, same ideas.
So we're going to take a little break, and we come back. We are going to ask Alex and Amanda what the tool that they would put in your bestie toolkit as you navigate your road through and out of domestic abuse. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wayne Callies, and I played Dr. Sarah Tancredi on Prison Break.
And I'm Paul Edelstein, and I played Agent Paul Kellerman on Prison Break. Please join us on our rewatch podcast, Prison Breaking, with Sarah and Paul.
We're going to have all kinds of guests and never-before-told stories, so follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can subscribe to our watch party on the link there. We can't wait to see you there.
And follow us on Instagram at Prison Break Podcast. See you there.
Welcome back to Bitch is a Bad Word with the Dirty Laundry hosts. And we've been talking a lot about mediation, family court. We're basically kind of coming to the reality that the system wasn't built for us being the survivors, the victims, and there are alternatives that you can lean on and utilize building your team as you travel through this road or down this road, and understanding that the best case scenario is, getting into a group of people who have your best interests and understand what you're going through in your trauma. They are trauma informed. And What do you say, ladies? Like, what do you wish mediators and family court professionals actually understood about coercive control? I'm going to get to that. I wanted to ask that question before because that's a lot of what's happening in these situations with when we kind of touched on financial abuse, emotional abuse. That all lends to this term that we're learning about is like coercive control. So what do you wish we knew?
Believe them, right? Believe if she's saying something, believe her. I think so often women get labeled as, oh, she's being, anxious or dramatic or hysterical or protective or overbearing or all of these words that, that are used to describe women who are screaming about something. So I think that believe them and take them seriously. That's my,
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, always believe, but
believe them.
Yeah, what am I going to say? Coercive control, right? That whole idea of being underhanded, being quite sneaky. I don't even know, Lindsay, if this was your question, but I think forgive yourself, be kind to yourself, give yourself some grace. We're so hard on ourselves, and people see the end of a relationship as a failure. I failed at this. I wasn't strong enough or smart enough to make my marriage work. No, it was a losing battle.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're strong enough. You left, or now be proud of yourself. But whatever it is, just be so kind, because going through a divorce with just your regular Joe Blow is awful.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's emotional. It's gut-wrenching. You are grieving so much. Now pile on top of that somebody who was controlling your whole relationship, somebody who manipulated you and will continue to do so. I just think find people in your corner that are going to cheerlead for you, that are going to pick you up when you don't have the strength. Don't be so brave to think you can do it on your own. Ask for help. This is honestly this is why Amanda and I started the pod, is destigmatize this shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Divorce is not the end of the world. It is not something that we should be shameful about. And when we can ditch the shame, we can be vulnerable. We can ask for help. We can lead with kindness. And so that's sort of my takeaway.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that if someone's listening that feels like, we always say, we want to destigmatize abuse, we want to destigmatize divorce, we want advocating for yourself is okay, having autonomy is okay. All these things are great. And you're teaching your children how to be standing up for themselves, how leave when it's bad, leave. Hopefully you don't get into the situation. Pods like yours, pods like ours are what's educating people to see what's really happening. But also we're living a long life. You get one precious life. If you want a divorce, go fucking ask for it. Or you're not asking. Sorry, Kate Anthony reminded me. You are telling them you're getting a divorce. You don't have to ask for shit. You just, you do it. And that's okay. That person is going to tell you that you broke up the family. You're a loser. They're going to say all the things, but it's just noise.
Yes.
It's not real. They are just butthurt and they want to make you feel like shit.
Exactly.
But you can say, no, this stops now. It stops with me. And your children will spend 50% of their time in your home where you're peaceful. There's love. There's respect. There's not the bullshit. And you are doing your child an amazing service just from leaving.
Just from leaving.
And you're removing the conflict too. You know what's going to happen over there. I've had to get to the point where I just I don't fucking care. I can't care. I can't care what's happening. I know they're not getting what they would normally get, but it is
you have to give up that control too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's a control on the other side too. You're why is this in their lunchbox? Why it's in the lunchbox? Because they know you're looking at it and they love knowing that you're pissed off it's in the lunchbox. So just let it go. Just
let it go.
Oh,
yeah. This is when you gotta get your inner Mel Robbins, right? Just let.
I was your inner Elsa. Let it go.
Inner Elsa. Yes, that's actually
inner Frozen. Just let it go.
Get whomever is gonna inspire you to get through it and get it going.
I literally sing that song every time I see shit show up, and I'm let it go. Fucking go. because it's not going to matter. And what you're going to do is you're going to give them the tiniest little bit of fuel. And all they want from that is to know that you care. Like they feel that you care, or like that's an invitation to tango. And they're like, oh, okay, they want to play. Let's play this game. And, you know, you don't have to. You don't have to participate in any of this shit. And you stick to the plan.
You don't have to participate in every fight you're invited to.
There you go.
And the truth of it is doesn't matter how hard you fight, they're not going to change.
No.
Your kids are still going to go to that shitty environment, no matter how you fight.
Right.
Like, I'm not saying it's easy to let go. God,
or always having to prove yourself and explain yourself that actually I'm right, you're wrong. This is what actually happened, because they will twist the truth in every which way that they can. You will spend all of your energy trying to prove the fact that you're right. And then what?
Well, they don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
On to the next one.
Yeah. They're like, okay, and if the amount of times that have actually proven the rightness, they're like, and?
Yeah. So?
Yeah. Well,
it's like, but you lied. So?
Yeah. Well, and
we'll do it again.
Yeah. Okay.
And around we go. And
it's a carousel.
It is.
It's really
it is
merry-go-round.
Fucking clown show carousel that we don't need to be on. That is
fuck off the carousel.
It's like time to go. Okay, so what will we give our besties to put in their bestie toolkit?
I was going to suggest, and it's not for everyone, and again, you both have to agree, but one of those apps, the co-parenting apps. I think if you are dealing with one of these high conflict, vindictive personalities who just want to control and send awful text to you, if you can get on a co-parenting app where it's all recorded, documented in one place, I think that removes some of their control. So that's my advice. Yeah.
I would say, like, get some boundaries. Like, really get firm in your boundaries. Learn what that actually means. Maybe you need to work with a professional or go to the library and read up about it, but like really understand. It helps with co-parenting. It helps with raising kids generally. It helps with getting into a new relationship with somebody new and not allowing the same patterns to repeat themselves. Like, really get so solid in who you are, what you want, what you're willing to accept, and do not budge from that really strong boundaried foundation. I think that is, honestly, women across the world need to learn this, right? Like, we are set up in a system that is not really designed for us, or it's designed perfectly to keep us down. But again, I digress. Get some boundaries and just really hold firm, because it's so easy for us to joke around, oh yeah, the carousel, this, whatever. No, like, when you're living it, it's fucking hell.
Yeah.
And if you can establish some boundaries where, oh, they're going to text me, guess what? I'm not going to read them.
I just learned about a texting app that's out in the UK. I have to figure out what the name of it is. And it's a new beta, but it takes the text messages, come into your app, and it removes anything that isn't about like the pickup or like whatever it is. And so you never even get to see the shit that's ruined your day.
It's a shit sieve.
Yes.
It's a shit sieve.
It's a shit sieve.
Oh my gosh. Well, let us know when you find out.
I just heard about it from Josh Conley. So I will look, I'll ask him again. But I was like, wow, because that's the stuff. They're doing these, when that ping, the PTSD is real. You're like, I even have mine that has like a different ringtone, and I've tried that, and then that was stressing me out. Then we do the parenting app, and then you're like, when was the last? They haven't looked at it. They haven't looked at it. They haven't looked at it. Like, fuck, it's all designed to mess with your mind and your day. Yeah. So the more you can, get a plan together, stick with the plan, know that they're never going to change. And if they do, great, let them go change for somebody else, or let them change and show you how awesome they are. All the things you missed. It's happening. But just like, great, amazing. Because then your kids get a really great version of that person. And so that's what we would all want anyway. Yeah, so, but you can only control yourself. Listen to these ladies. They're telling you you guys are the best in your business, and your boundaries are important. Yeah. And understanding where you stand, and just being able to, if you can imagine the freedom, if you just said, wow, I don't have to think about this for 24 hours or the next pickup. I have the most insane pickup. Like we are every other day. What the hell kind of situation is this?
Hey.
Like during the week, we're every other day. So it's like, you know, and we didn't figure out summer, and we didn't, you know, we had a different school schedule when we did this. And so now they're in a different school. So the summer is different. So now I'm like, you're going back into it, but it's like the deal is to make it hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be stuck forever on the merry-go-round.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So where can we find you?
Great question. So Amanda and I both have our own private practices. Mine is Midtown Mediation. Hers is Forest Hill. But more importantly, the pod is where we live and breathe, and all of our life is there. So Dirty Laundry Podcast. You can find us everywhere you can find a podcast. Such great information. Tons of amazing experts. So it's free info. So empower yourself with information. You can never have enough info. So highly recommend.
And we're on YouTube as well. So if you want to watch us rather than just listen, go head over to YouTube.
And what's your Instagram?
dirty.laundry.podcast.
Yay. Okay. So I want to welcome you gals into my club. It's the BFF Club. It's Bitches Fighting for Freedom. And I'm putting together just a consortium of badasses that we can all get together. I don't know what we're going to do with it. I have plans. If you'd like to join the club, we would love to have you as members.
We would love to.
Honored
Thank you.
to do it. Thank you, Lindsay. It's been so fun to chat.
So fun to chat. These are the best talks ever, and we learn so much every week, and you guys are doing an amazing job on your show. I love it. I listen to it and learn so much. So thank you for coming on and sharing all of your insight with our besties, and we look forward to chatting with you guys soon.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bitches being bad.